Chapter 14, Single Subject Research Designs. Single subject design or single case design are kinds of research that you use a single participant or a single subject to do your research on. And the good thing with this is that although you have only one subject, you can show a cause and effect relationship. As you know, a single subject design does not give us a whole bunch of scores that we can calculate the average or t-test or any kind of scores that we can do statistical analysis. Instead, we evaluate the effectiveness by visual inspection of the graphs that we make based on a single participant's score. This is an example. As you see, we have two phases here. One phase is before treatment and one phase happens after or during the treatment. So in this example, the participant score was high before the treatment started on day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and at the end of day 5 we start our treatment and we continue our treatment, and we see as soon as the treatment started, the score went down. A major limitation of this method is that it's not a true experimental research because we have no control over extraneous variables. There are a couple of things that we need to consider when we're doing a single subject design. First, we have to know what is a phase and what's a phase change. A phase is a series of observations of the same individual under the same conditions. As you see in this picture or the picture I just showed you, we have series of observations before we start our treatment. So this is one phase which is called the baseline phase, and then we have a second phase here which is the treatment phase. The other thing is that we have three types of baseline: stable level, a stable trend, and unstable data. And this picture shows the difference between these three baselines. The stable level, as you see in this picture, shows a sort of relatively stable score for the individual. As you see on different days, the score is not that much different. The stable trend is that although the score is going up every day, but the rate of increase is sort of stable and it doesn't go up and down. But the unstable baseline is a baseline that the participant score goes up and down or fluctuates dramatically. Obviously, as a researcher, we like to have a stable baseline or at least a stable trend, but this one is a hassle that we have to deal with. But how did you deal with unstable data? There are a couple of ways that you can deal with it. One is just waiting. So occasionally it happens that students show unstable data in the few first days of observation, and then after they get used to this environment or the situation, their behavior or their performance becomes stable. The other method is to consider the average of a set of two or more observations. For example, in this picture, as you see, it's a kind of unstable baseline, and what we can do is just we average day 1 and day 2 and day 3 and day 4 and day 5 and day 6. And if you look at the second picture, you see it looks more stable. And the third method is to look for patterns within the inconsistency. Sometimes when you're dealing with kids, you never know what's going or what's happening in their life after or before your observation. So you may see unstable baseline, but if you look at the data carefully, you see there is a pattern. For example, on Wednesday and Monday the performance goes down, and on Tuesday and Thursday performance goes up. And if you repeat this, you see this is like a pattern. Every single week this happens. And when you ask the student, you may see, for example, on Wednesday and Monday he has a swimming lesson either after or before observation, and so you can see the pattern and you can do something about that, or at least consider the fact that your participant had this kind of problem. Another question is how much or how many observations is enough for a phase. Either it's a baseline phase or treatment phase. So the rule of the thumb is minimum of 3 observations, but that's not a universal rule and it may change depending on the situation. For example, if you see a continuous improvement as you're observing your participant, probably you don't need to intervene and do anything because the behavior is already improving. The other situation is that the behavior is so dangerous that you have to intervene as soon as possible, so you cannot let it go for a few weeks to create your own baseline. And also in some situations when you start your treatment and you see the treatment appears to produce an immediate and severe deterioration in behavior, so it's actually harming the behavior or harming the participant, again you have to stop it as soon as possible. Now that we learned some basic definitions, let's see how you actually do the visual inspection techniques. Again, because we don't have statistical analysis, there is like no level of significance here. Everything that we say about the behavior is based on our visual inspection. So basically you can tell if a treatment is effective if you see an immediate and large change according to the graph. And this change could be in 4 different ways. Could be a change in average level, it could be an immediate change in level, it could be a change in a trend, and it could be a latency of change. So let's see, what does it mean? Change in average level. Change in average level means that immediately after you start your treatment here, you see an immediate and a large change in scores or in student performance right after you start your treatment. And if you see a situation like this, you're happy because obviously you see a big change right away as soon as you start your treatment. The second situation is immediate change in level, which means, unlike the previous example, the average level is not really or significantly different after you start your treatment, but the first time or the first day you start your treatment you see a big change. So but the effectiveness goes away as a result, but the average change is not significant. The overall change is not significant. And the third scenario is a change in a trend. A change in the trend is that, for example, here we have a sort of stable baseline, and then as soon as you start your treatment you see the score starts going up. That's also a good news. That means your treatment is working. Or in this situation, the score was going up before your treatment, and as soon as you start your treatment, the scores or the performance is going down. That's again is a good news and means that your treatment is working. Sometimes after you pass the baseline and you start your treatment, you don't see any immediate change, and the change starts like a few days after you start your treatment. That's called latency in change.